to week 6 sub 3 hour marathon total. This week was a pretty heavy week. I think it's the most Ks and time I've sort of spent on the feet this week. Must admit, I'm actually getting a little bit tired, feeling quite a bit of fatigue kicking this week. So quickly run through totals. 74.5 kilometres covered this week, and a total of about 7 hours and 10 minutes of running. I only ran 5 days, but what I did do is I actually stepped up the length of time. So I didn't do any sort of 45-minute runs this week. I've stepped them all up to be sort of hour 10, hour 12, hour 15s. And then on the Saturday, Sunday, I went what I call sort of long run on Saturday, which was about an hour 40. Went through quite a bit of hills and stuff again. And then on the Sunday, did another 2-hour run. But I must be honest, on the Sunday I just did not kind of want to run, and it took quite a bit of willpower to get out of bed, and the fact that I was meeting up with someone, so thank you Karina, to do a 2-hour run. This is I guess one of the benefits of running with a group like Arcade Pod and being part of a running group. It does give you the discipline to get up and get out of bed and keep moving on days where you might not really feel like it, and that's a good thing when you've got goals that you want to achieve. But where it can actually be sometimes a bit of a bad thing is where you start to feel peer pressure and you start to slip into overtraining. And this can happen sometimes in groups where you're running a little bit too fast and not being able to stay at that low heart rate, which is really critical to what I'm trying to do as part of this experiment. So far I'm disciplined enough to sort of drop off the pack and do those things, but I must admit Sunday morning was a pleasure, and to have someone to be able to chat with, and the time passes a lot more quickly, especially when you're doing a 2-hour run. So it's a really good thing, but just to have that self-awareness to be able to balance it, so you're not overtraining, but you do have enough to keep you out there doing the mileage that you need. All in all, a pretty good week, but definitely feeling the fatigue. So I think next week might try and back it off a little bit and just see how the body pulls up. Might be a good week to throw in some quicker stuff, or maybe some of those hard efforts that we've talked about doing with Ross and Dave Coombs, about doing some hard sort of 50-metre sprints uphill. But I'll see what sort of comes about next week, and I'm going to sort of start to listen to my body a little bit more and play it by feel. This week I do want to just touch on one quick subject, and you'll see I've got the Cadence charts now available for download on the website, so you'll be able to find them and go and download those, and they're good for anyone that wants to run anything up to 3.5, 4-hour marathons. You'll be able to see what pace your cadence is at, how many steps per minute you need to take, and how far those steps or strides need to be in order to be able to hold that time. And we also did a couple of unique kind of calculations, I guess, that worked out over the course of the marathon, in that 42.2 kilometres of running, how many steps you'll actually take, which is a bit mind-boggling when you start seeing 34,000, 30,000 steps in a race. It's a lot to sort of sneak in that repetition over those sort of hours, so it's really interesting. But following on from Cadence, I want to just quickly touch on something that makes it easier to understand how we can get that stride length without getting all the muscle fatigue and all that. And it comes down to something that's a little bit reminds me of sort of where we are here. We're in a beautiful parkland here that actually fills up with some beautiful Australian animals, the koala. But there's one animal in Australia, it's actually our largest mammal on Earth, and Australia's largest land mammal is the red kangaroo. The red kangaroo is really, really unique, and it's really unique for one reason, and it's because it doesn't run. It's not down on all fours, and even though it's on all twos, it doesn't sort of bipedal like we do the way it runs. It hops. And what's really unique about, and what we can learn as runners from the red kangaroo, through this hopping motion, they have an incredible elasticity through their Achilles heel. And the Achilles and our tendons and ligaments adapt over time to give us this spring and this recoil that allows us to run with less effort and less energy being used, just because the elasticity in that spring actually does a lot of work for us. Now what happens is, in the human body, as we begin to age, we tend to lose that elasticity. And so what happens is, it's a little bit like having a basketball that goes flat. And you see it in runners, when they start to run, they get very heavy and they spend a lot of time with their feet on the ground. And if you look up your Garmin watches, they actually give you this data where it says ground contact time, the GCT tells you the amount of times, and like if you start getting out to 0.25 and 0.3, that's a lot of time for the feet to be spending on the ground. World's most elite marathon runners will be like 0.19 of a second on the ground, so they're on and off the ground really quickly. They're using that elastic recoil to bounce off the ground. So if we take our basketball and we actually pump it up full of air, it's going to bounce and be on and off the ground a lot quicker. And when it comes to cadence, and we're trying to step up to 180, 190 cadence, to be able to turn our feet over, we need that elastic recoil. But the really good thing about this elastic recoil and this spring off the ground is that physically we use a lot less energy. And the kangaroo is the most amazing animal because it, at half speed, kangaroo can bound along, but when it actually starts to increase speed, it uses less energy because it has less ground contact time. So a red kangaroo will use more energy by staying on the ground longer, almost in its walking motion to its sort of slower little jogging motion. It uses more energy than when it picks up speed. And when it picks up speed, a kangaroo can actually hit up to 40 kilometers an hour, which is Usain Bolt sprint speed sort of thing, top end speed. But the kangaroo can hold a constant energy use, so it's able to maintain its energy and then bound over longer distances. So the same is kind of true of humans to some degree. We don't have the same level of elastic recoil that a red kangaroo has, so ours does decline a little bit as we sort of pick up speed, but we do benefit from having the greater amount of elastic recoil. So if you're an athlete that's really springy, and you look at it in kids, when you see a kid who's 8 or 10 years of age and they're bounding along, they just like spring off the ground. They've got this beautiful bouncy motion that we look at them and think they're so light and it's so graceful to watch. That's that elastic recoil where they're using so much less energy because they're so much more elastic. And as we age and we lose that elasticity, we start looking like very heavy sort of plodders who are spending all this time on the ground instead of floating through the air. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. And what's really interesting, I find just absolutely amazing when you talk about stride lengths, the red kangaroo at full speed, its full stride is up to distances of 9 meters long, which is just phenomenal. If you go step out 9 meters and have a look at how far that is, that's how far a kangaroo actually bounds under full speed. Just amazing. As humans, we're never ever going to step that far, of course. So we have a look at the cadence charts and have a look at the video that I posted from Dr. Mark Cucuzzella on natural running motion, who talks a bit about the elasticity, and he's got a great little drill where you can bound off the ground really quickly like that. And simple things like a good mate of mine, Mark Ladbrook, who's an Olympic sprinter, I know he teaches all of his athletes to take on a few simple exercises, things like hopping, just to build up that elastic recoil, but doing it under a certain sort of speed so that you can be on and off the ground in the right sort of ground contact time is key. We're never going to develop the sort of elasticity of our great friend the red kangaroo, but it's a great lesson to sort of hold true, because as you build up your mileage and as you stay injury free and you keep developing some hill work and some spring in your step, you will increase your stride length and you will use less energy, and all of this will build up in the human body over time. It's a training effect. It does take quite a long time to develop, just as it would as if someone transitioned to barefoot running. You would start off with very short distances and we would spend a good year, maybe 2 years, developing that kind of tendon and ligament and muscle adaptation to be able to handle it. The same is true with this, but with good consistent training and good consistent sort of mileage and the right rest and adaptation over a period of time, we can get our stride length and our elasticity back up there as good as ever as well too. It's the same old saying, use it or lose it. So thanks to our friend the red kangaroo, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers.